Hello, resident IP fan here, and have you ever needed to market your own obscure gaming product?
Hello, this is JadeBlade, here to upgrade your gaming capabilities to the max. We're supplying drinks with everything you need. That includes caffeine, electrolytes, vitamins, and of course, alcohol in every single beverage to take your gaming to the next level. And here's what our customers have to say.
After a week of drinking Jadeaholics, I've been able to game at a higher level while also increasing my DUI count from 1 to 3. Thank you, Jadeaholics, for making me lose custody.
You hear that? They love it, and you will too. Go to www.jadegaming/alcohol.com and use code JADE20 at checkout to get 20% off your first purchase. And it, of course, includes a free cup of water.
So you have a pretty famous IP and you want to make a quick buck. Well, lucky for you, other companies are willing to spend for the exclusive right of using your famous IP to put on their original product. Whether you're Wheaties and you use athletes to market your cereal as being good for your physical health, or you're Coca-Cola doing a collab with League of Legends because you're psychotic, most companies use licensing to expand their brand at the cost of some of their own money. And this phenomenon slipped into gaming. Instead of making an original IP and having to sell that to a 6-year-old who only knows the Terminator, you can instead make a video game based on the Terminator, and the kid will instantly be interested. As humans, we are naturally inclined to trust and like things we already are familiar with, so of course making licensed video games made perfect sense. Problem is that the quality control with these games is less like Terminator 2 and more like Terminator Genesis, or in other words, fucking atrocious. The problem with so many of these licensed games is their intention. Many of them were made purely for profit and a tax write-off. Kind of like why I was made. So today, we're going over the history of licensed games and seeing how exactly they have evolved from being completely ass to, maybe still completely ass, and also what makes a good licensed game and what makes a bad one. So we rewind into the 1970s with a little console titled the Atari 2600. I would consider the Atari to be the first major home console success, and because it was the first major success, a lot of gaming companies didn't know how to market their games. Many companies didn't realize that for a game to be successful, it had to be decently well made, and because of this, alongside the extreme mass production of games that just frankly weren't going to sell well, the whole gaming industry would crash. However, one of the ways games were able to be marketable was to assign them to already well-known IPs, because is a family going to trust Donkey Kong or Obelix? You tell me. It made perfect sense. Why sell something that nobody knows when you can sell something that everybody was already comfortable with? Problem was quality control. Games like E.T. became infamous for being terrible, and by extension, a lot of other licensed games got a reputation of being quite poor. This is because a lot of these licensed games were made on low budgets and in a small amount of time in order to capitalize on the recent film release that they're based off of, or a holiday season. Games like Friday the 13th for the NES or Back to the Future were failures in every department. They looked miserable, they felt miserable, and they really made you just want to put your dick inside a fucking spiked hole. And these games that were just so poor, well, they added to the reputation of licensed games being ass. But every now and then, there would be some outliers. Aladdin for the SNES and Genesis, the DuckTales games, Spider-Man 2, and SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. There were some licensed games during this earlier period that weren't just ass with a side of steaming horse dung. But what made these games so different to the cesspool of all the others? These licensed games weren't just made for a quick crash grab, but rather actually were made to be an entertaining game, with game studios who put their heart and soul into making them fun. Now, as the generations passed, licensed games would continue to be abundant, with tons of stinkers, but there would be highlights. GoldenEye, developed by Rareware, was not only one of the greatest licensed games ever, but it would also revolutionize how first-person shooters would work and just be a super fun game as a whole. We would also receive games like Simpsons Hit and Run and Kingdom Hearts, which are both great, with Kingdom Hearts receiving many different spin-offs and sequels in the future. But I will say, I don't really know if Kingdom Hearts even counts as a licensed game. I guess it does have Disney characters and shit in it, but last time I checked, Sora is an original idea. But to me, something changed during the PS3 and Xbox 360 era. Licensed games started to get good, or at least have a standard of quality. It could be because games were getting more and more expensive to produce, or maybe because consumers were getting smarter at not buying the steaming pile of dog shit that is Batman Dark Tomorrow. And this quality increase was highlighted by one of the greatest licensed games ever, Batman Arkham Asylum. The Arkham series as a whole featured incredibly fun and smooth gameplay, alongside a beautiful world that is just crushed in this thick, gothic atmosphere created by the visuals, making the series just a wonderful time to say the least. And if you want to have an even better time, hop on the Batman Arkham subreddit. You won't kill yourself. There were others during this era that were also really solid. The Ghostbusters game, the Lego game, South Park, The Stick of Truth, all these games that wore their IP as a badge of honor, rather than a big red sign saying, go fuck yourself. However, there was an exception to the rule. The Wii. The Wii was the console meant for families, and because of that, its target audience was mainly moms and their children. Moms who don't know what a good video game is. So when they go to the store and they see Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess or Eminem's Kart Racing, they pick Eminem's Kart Racing. Because not only is it $20 cheaper, but it's also their favorite candy. Unfortunately, this M&M was laced with horse semen and toad urine. So yeah, the Wii was essentially just hellspawn in terms of these garbage-ass money-grab products. But as the 7th generation of consoles came by, there seemed to be a decline in licensed games. Less and less were being made, probably because game development was getting more and more expensive and time-consuming, meaning making a cheap-ass vomit wasn't exactly a viable option. But with that being said, less of these games meant that the overall quality of them increased, with the main highlight being Insomniac's Spider-Man franchise. Spider-Man PS4 was one of the best games released for PlayStation 4, and I say that with my chest out and my dick half erect. The world was beautifully detailed. In fact, everything in the game is. The gameplay was just as well crafted. The swinging felt fluid with each animation perfectly leading into each other, and the story was quite interesting as well, with a mature Peter Parker at the helm. It hit plenty of emotional moments and, while isn't exactly the greatest story ever, was really solid. We've received 2 more games in the franchise since then, with a Miles Morales spin-off and a sequel in the form of Spider-Man 2. Miles Morales featured improved gameplay with a significantly worse narrative and some of the worst beats you'll ever hear. Spider-Man 2, however, saw improvements in many different areas, but also at the same time felt maybe a little too similar to previous entries. I, for one, am not a Spider-Man 2 hater like some people are. I still think the game is overall really good, with just a good bit of flaws that I wish were improved on before the release, mainly with the third act pacing, and also with the combat being basically the same as previous entries, and debatably worse. I wouldn't say that, but the removal of some of the gadgets was kind of sad to see. But still, looking at these games, the Batman Arkham series, the Witcher series, and the new Wolverine game coming soon, I would say licensed games have come a long way since the early days. Well, I picked 3 of the best licensed games out there and, noted down just what they do better than the average sloppy Joe that you get out of the genre. Starting with Simpsons Hit and Run. Booting up the game, and you can immediately tell that it actually looks pretty good, a stark contrast from the visual representation of a hemorrhoid most licensed games are. Simpsons Hit and Run accurately portrays the original source material both visually and tonally, with its comedy matching up very well with the original television series. This game is genuinely funny, and I would recommend it to anybody who's a fan of The Simpsons comedy in general. The game's gameplay, while not anything revolutionary, feels quite good to play. The game combines traditional 3D platforming elements, like collecting collectibles and, jumping across shit, alongside GTA elements. Yeah, you heard me right. The game known for prostitution, killing innocents, cops chasing you, and American political commentary is a major influence on The Simpsons Hit and Run. The game has a sandbox world, one with destructible environment and police system. Sure, it's not as deep as the ones that you'll find in GTA or even a Saints Row, but it's a good introduction to police brutality for the youth. Overall, the game just feels good to play, with the controls being responsive and the game feeling just very clean overall. Next game is one I've already talked about, but I feel like I could get deeper into it, and that's Marvel's Spider-Man, specifically the second one, since it's the one I've been playing most recently. Once again, much like Hit and Run, Spider-Man 2 visually is fantastic looking, with nearly every model being wonderfully detailed, and the suits especially being incredibly well designed, except if they're an Insomniac original. But what Spider-Man 2 does best, though, is really get you immersed into the world of Spider-Man. The J. Jonah Jameson intermissions, the wonderful swinging mechanics, the dynamic crime system, the game perfectly gets you lost into feeling like you're Spider-Man. Yes, what I just said is cliche and kind of a meme, but it's true. Spider-Man really does make you feel like Spider-Man. Finally, let's talk about Batman Arkham. The Arkham games, just like Insomniac's Spider-Man series, perfectly recreates the world of Batman and just makes it a blast to play in. The atmosphere is there, the storylines are there, and the gameplay, well, it takes all the elements that people find cool about Batman and makes them fluid as all hell to use. The voice acting quality in the game itself felt like it was made by people who truly gave a shit about the Batman comics.
And a common factor between all these games is them actually giving a fuck about what they're making and respecting the source material.
But the most important thing a licensed game should do is feel like it's in the same realm as the IP it's based off of. A game based in the Superman universe shouldn't feel like I'm playing Leisure Suit Larry, Box Office Bust. It should feel like I'm flying in Metropolis, taking out Lex Luthor or something. So many licensed games feel so generic or just flat out the opposite of what their IP is, and this should be an immediate sign that you failed at your job. Another thing that many licensed games fail to do is just have simple quality control. Rarely are licensed games given the proper time or budget to really flesh out their ideas. This is why you get garbage action platformers with at least 50 recycled ideas that you've seen in 1,000 other games. But in the end, a good licensed game should just be fun. Don't waste our time with mindless garbage, but instead actually take the time to craft something unique and fun to engage with. Games like Spider-Man, Arkham, DuckTales, or even the Walking Dead game feel like games made with passion and love for the original IP. And that passion is what separates them from the schlock we usually get from licensed games. And what's life without passion for the things you love? Well, I'll tell you what, it's nothing.
So in conclusion, next time you buy an intellectual product, make sure you give a shit about it. That's why I purchased Sunny D. Yes, I am the brand new CEO of Sunny D. It's always just been a dream of mine to, one day own this beautiful thing. Now, you might be wondering, where's Jadeaholics? Well, unfortunately, we got sued because some guy was like, oh, I lost my daughter in a DUI accident and they were drinking your product. Anyways, I have Sunny D here. Of course, we're going to be adding alcohol to it, and I'm going to actually try it here. I don't know how to open the bottle. Yeah, we're going to give it a get. Oh, it's fucking ass.